I stared at page 47 of Denise's diary, my hands trembling as I read the words that would destroy my family. The old cripple suspects nothing. Made another $800 this week selling his pills while he writhes in agony with those useless substitutes. Marcus will never believe his war hero daddy is just another drug addict. My name is Walter Brooks, and at 67 years old, I thought I'd seen enough betrayal for one lifetime. Vietnam took my left leg below the knee in 1969, courtesy of shrapnel that still sends phantom pain shooting through a limb that isn't even there anymore. The real kicker? That was just the beginning. 3 years ago, when my Martha passed, my son Marcus opened his home to me without hesitation. Good kid, that one. Always has been. His wife, Denise, seemed welcoming enough, all smiles and reassurances that I wouldn't be a burden. I contribute my entire disability pension to their household expenses. $2,800 monthly, keeping just $200 for myself. Fair deal, right? Well, apparently not everyone saw it that way. The phantom limb pain never goes away, and arthritis decided to join the party somewhere along the way. My doctor prescribed strong pain medication that actually worked, making life bearable again. But here's where things get interesting. Over the past 6 months, my pain had been getting worse despite taking the same pills at the same dosage. My doctor kept insisting the medication was adequate, that maybe I was just having a rough patch. Then Denise left for her week-long business trip to Chicago. Tuesday morning, my arthritis flared something fierce. I hobbled to Denise's bathroom looking for aspirin, my hands shaking as I fumbled through her medicine cabinet. That's when I knocked over a stack of books sitting on the counter. They scattered everywhere, and a leather-bound diary fell open right at my feet. Page 47 stared up at me. My own name jumped out from the handwriting. Now, I'm not the type to snoop through someone's private thoughts. Martha raised me better than that. But something about seeing my name written there made me pause. Just a glance, I told myself. What harm could it do? Those words still burn in my memory. The old cripple suspects nothing. Made another $800 this week selling his pills while he writhes in agony with those useless substitutes. Marcus will never believe his war hero daddy is just another drug addict. My hands started trembling, and not from the arthritis this time. I kept reading, each entry worse than the last. Months of detailed records showing how Denise had been systematically replacing my prescription opioids with over-the-counter pain relievers that looked identical. She'd been selling my real medication to buyers she'd cultivated, making over $15,000 so far. The entries included customer contacts, profit margins, even her thoughts on expanding the operation. That explained everything. Why my pain? Management had become increasingly useless. Why I'd been suffering in silence, thinking I was just getting weaker with age. But the medication theft was just the appetizer. The deeper I read, the more my blood ran cold. Denise had documented her long-term strategy to have me institutionalized. She'd been creating false incidents of what she called my drug-seeking behavior, building a case that I'd become addicted and dangerous. The woman had actually forged my signature on preliminary paperwork for VA facilities. Let's not forget her manipulation campaign against Marcus. Entry after entry detailed how she'd been poisoning my son against me, describing me as increasingly difficult and suggesting I might be developing dementia. She'd told friends and family fabricated stories about my behavior, intercepted my mail, and researched ways to circumvent my legal rights. The most brutal entry called me a burden who's outlived his usefulness. Sitting there on her bathroom floor, surrounded by scattered books and devastating truths, I realized something crucial. This wasn't just about stolen pills or even financial fraud. Denise had been systematically destroying my relationship with my son while planning to warehouse me in some facility where I'd die forgotten and alone. The question wasn't whether I'd fight back. The question was how strategic I could be about it. I spent the next 2 hours reading every single page of that diary. Trust me, It got worse. Much worse. Turns out Denise had been planning my downfall like a military operation. She'd mapped out exactly how to convince Marcus that his old man had lost his marbles. The woman had actually written down conversation starters designed to make me sound unstable. Things like asking me the same question twice in front of Marcus, then acting concerned when I gave different answers, or hiding my reading glasses and watching me stumble around confused. But here's where it gets really twisted. She'd been staging little incidents to build her case. Remember last month when Marcus found me hoarding pain pills in my bedroom drawer? According to the diary, Denise planted those extra bottles there herself. She'd moved furniture around my room, then expressed worry to Marcus when I mentioned things weren't where I left them. Classic gaslighting, military-grade execution. The financial angle made my stomach turn. She'd researched my disability benefits thoroughly, discovering that once I was declared incompetent, she could petition to become my financial guardian. My monthly pension would flow directly through her hands. The diary laid out her 5-year plan with chilling precision. Institutionalize Walter, control his money, and slowly drain his accounts while he deteriorated in some state-run facility. Then there's the VA facility paperwork I mentioned. She hadn't just forged my signature once. The woman had practiced my handwriting for weeks, filling page after page until she could replicate it perfectly. She'd already submitted preliminary applications to 3 different facilities, describing me as increasingly aggressive and paranoid. One application claimed I'd threatened her with violence. Another suggested I'd been caught trying to buy street drugs. None of it was true. All of it was documented in her own handwriting. What really got me was how she'd been intercepting my mail. Veterans Affairs sends regular updates about benefits and healthcare options. Denise had been filtering these letters, keeping anything that might give me more independence or resources. She'd thrown away information about veteran support groups, legal aid services, and even a notice about increased disability payments I was entitled to. The woman had cut me off from my own support network without me realizing it. Her manipulation of Marcus showed a different kind of evil genius. She'd been planting seeds of doubt about my mental state for months. Casual comments about how I seemed more confused lately, or how I'd repeated stories during dinner. She'd convinced him that my increased pain complaints were signs of drug dependency rather than the result of her medication theft. The diary revealed her master stroke. She'd scheduled a family meeting with Marcus for the day after her return from Chicago. The agenda? Discussing Dad's deteriorating condition and exploring residential care options for his own safety. She'd prepared a folder of evidence documenting my supposed decline, complete with fabricated incidents and forged medical concerns. Marcus had no idea what was coming. Reading those entries, I realized Denise saw me as nothing more than a financial asset to be harvested. She'd calculated exactly how much money she could extract before I became too much trouble to keep around. The medication sales were just her getting started. The real prize was my monthly pension and whatever savings I had left after Martha's funeral expenses. But wait, there's more. She'd been researching something called undue influence laws, trying to figure out how to legally challenge my will. Apparently, I'd made the mistake of leaving everything to Marcus instead of including her as a direct beneficiary. The diary showed she'd consulted with a lawyer about contesting the will based on claims of my mental incompetence. The same mental incompetence she was actively working to create. Her Chicago business trip? Complete fiction. She'd actually been meeting with private investigators and elder care consultants, building a professional network to support her case against me. One entry mentioned hiring someone to document my erratic behavior in public places. Another discussed bribing a pharmacy technician to report suspicious activity in my prescription pickups. This woman had declared war on a disabled veteran and planned to win by any means necessary. The cruelest part was how she'd weaponized Marcus's love for both of us. She knew my son would believe her over me because he trusted her completely. She'd been setting up a situation where any protest from me would sound exactly like the desperate lies of an addicted, confused old man. If I accused her of stealing my medication, she'd point to my drug-seeking behavior. If I complained about things being moved or missing, she'd cite my increasing paranoia. She'd built the perfect trap. Reading her mockery of my military service pushed me over the edge. She'd written entire paragraphs making fun of my war stories, calling them the desperate attempts of a broken-down soldier trying to feel important. She'd joked about my missing leg, wondering if I'd actually lost it to enemy fire or just stepped on something stupid. That's when I knew this wasn't just about justice anymore. This was personal. But here's the thing about underestimating old soldiers. We didn't survive combat by being stupid or helpless. Denise had made one critical error in her planning. She'd assumed that age and disability had made me weak and vulnerable. She'd forgotten that the same guy who survived 12 months in the jungle might have a few tricks left up his sleeve. I carefully photographed every relevant page of that diary with my phone, took pictures of the hidden medication stash I found in her bedroom, documented the forged paperwork she'd prepared. Then I put everything back exactly where I'd found it. Denise thought she was hunting a confused old man who didn't understand what was happening to him. What she'd actually done was declare war on a combat veteran who now knew exactly what she was planning. The next 3 days before her return were going to be very busy. I had phone calls to make, evidence to gather, and a strategy to plan. Because if this woman wanted to play hardball with a 70-year-old disabled vet, she was about to learn why that might not have been her smartest career move. Something told me this homecoming was going to be more interesting than she'd planned. 3 days. That's all I had to turn the tables on someone who thought she'd already won. My first call went to Jerry Martinez, my old police detective buddy who'd helped me navigate the legal mess after Martha died. Jerry's seen enough family betrayal cases to know when something stinks, and brother, this one reeked from miles away. "Walter, you sitting down?" he asked after I'd given him the highlights. "Because what you're describing isn't just theft. This is organized elder abuse with a side of fraud that could land her in federal prison." Jerry recommended Sarah Chen, a lawyer who specializes in cases like mine. Turns out there's a whole legal category for what Denise was doing. Who knew? Sarah squeezed me in for an emergency consultation that same afternoon, and her reaction was even stronger than Jerry's. "Mr. Brooks, in 20 years of elder abuse cases, I've rarely seen such systematic predatory behavior," she said, flipping through the diary photos on my phone. "The medication substitution alone is a felony. Add the forgery, financial fraud, and attempted guardianship manipulation. We're looking at potentially 15 to 20 years if she's convicted on all counts." But here's where strategy becomes crucial. Sarah advised against confronting Denise immediately. We needed more evidence, particularly medical documentation proving the medication tampering. Smart thinking. The next morning, I called my doctor's office and requested an emergency appointment for concerning symptoms. Dr. Patterson agreed to see me that afternoon, and when I explained what I suspected, his face went pale. Blood tests confirmed what we both feared. My system showed traces of over-the-counter pain relievers instead of the prescribed opioids. "Walter, this explains everything," he said, reviewing my recent complaints about increased pain. "Someone has been systematically poisoning you with ineffective substitutes while stealing controlled substances. This is medical abuse, and I'm required to report it." Perfect. Now we had official documentation. Wednesday brought another crucial piece of evidence. While cleaning my room, I discovered something Denise had missed. A small notebook where I'd been tracking my daily pain levels over the past 6 months. The correlation was undeniable. Every spike in pain corresponded exactly with periods when Denise was home and had access to my medication. That afternoon, I visited my bank and requested account statements going back 2 years. The timing of Denise's unexplained cash deposits matched perfectly with her diary entries about drug sales. We weren't just dealing with theft anymore. We were building a federal case. Then came Thursday's bombshell. Jerry called with news that made my blood run cold. He'd run a background check on Denise and discovered she'd been arrested 10 years ago for prescription fraud in another state. The charges were dropped due to insufficient evidence, but the pattern was unmistakable. "Walter, this woman is a professional," Jerry explained. "You weren't her first target, and you wouldn't have been her last." That revelation changed everything. This wasn't some desperate housewife making bad decisions. Denise was a career criminal who'd targeted vulnerable seniors before. The diary entries about researching my benefits and legal rights suddenly made perfect sense. She'd done this homework previously. Friday morning, I prepared for war. Sarah had drawn up all the necessary legal documents. Jerry arranged to be present during the confrontation as an official witness. Dr. Patterson provided medical records documenting the abuse. We'd even contacted the VA's Fraud Prevention Office, who confirmed they'd received forged applications in my name. Marcus still had no idea what was coming. Part of me felt terrible about the ambush, but Denise had left us no choice. Her planned family meeting was scheduled for Sunday afternoon, where she intended to convince my son that his father needed institutional care. Instead, she was about to discover that this old soldier still had some fight left in him. Saturday evening, Denise's plane landed at 7:30. She texted Marcus that she'd be home by 9. Time to find out what happens when predators become prey. 9 o'clock sharp, Denise walked through that front door with her usual smile and a bag full of Chicago souvenirs. Marcus hugged her like the loving husband he was. She had no idea that Jerry was already parked outside, or that I'd spent 3 days building an airtight case against her. "Welcome home, sweetheart," I said from my chair, diary sitting right there on the coffee table. "We need to talk." Her eyes locked onto that leather-bound book, and I watched her face drain of color in real time. Sometimes the best military strategy is the simplest one. Total surprise followed by overwhelming force. "Marcus, sit down," I continued. "Your wife has something to explain about my medication." Denise tried her practiced routine immediately. "Walter, you seem confused again. Maybe we should discuss those memory issues we've been noticing." Smart woman, I'll give her that, but not smart enough. I opened the diary to page 47 and handed it to Marcus. "Son, read this out loud. Let's hear what your wife really thinks about her drug-dealing operation." Marcus read those brutal words about the old cripple in complete silence. Then he kept reading, and reading. His face cycled through confusion, disbelief, anger, and finally heartbreak. Denise pivoted to damage control. "He's having another episode. I was writing fiction, working through frustrations. You know how difficult he's been lately." That's when I pulled out the medical records, bank statements, and photographs of her hidden medication stash. Hard evidence doesn't lie, even when the people around you do. $15,000, Marcus, I said quietly. That's what she made selling my pain medication while watching me suffer. The silence stretched forever. Then Marcus looked at his wife with eyes I'd only seen once before, when he was 12 and caught his best friend stealing from my wallet. "Pack your bags," he told her. "Now." Jerry came through that door right on schedule as Denise realized her carefully constructed world was collapsing. The arrest happened quickly and quietly, just like we'd planned. 6 months later, Denise pled guilty to multiple felony charges. She got 7 years, which felt about right. Marcus and I are closer than ever, and my pain medication actually works again. Funny how that happens when nobody's stealing it. The best part? I used the settlement money to start a foundation helping other seniors recognize elder abuse. Turns out this old soldier still had some good fights left in him after all. Never underestimate a veteran who's been backed into a corner.